Hello, everyone. This is Taylor back on an episode of Happy Cole. I am here with Andy Dill. He is an amazing man who has a ton of accomplishments. He is a former pro golfer, a now DJ, and a trail guide within the Kruger Park of South Africa. Prior to this, we're having high tea and got to meet his fiance and learn a bit about your life and your experience. It's pretty unique to live in a bush. Most people talk about living on an island being crazy.
Yeah.
So before we dive into all that, would love to start by understanding a little bit of how you got to the point of a professional golfer.
Yeah, my dad developed a passion for golf. He was not very good at it, but it was a recreational golfer where every weekend he would go and play golf. He always encouraged me to go with him, and I was like, no, golf's for old people. Why would I want to go and do that? And then a few months down the line, I went with him once. That's where my passion for golf started. From that first moment that I joined him on the golf course, I was like, this is what I want to do. I just fell in love with the game. As that progressed, I started to learn to play myself, and then I very soon developed a desire to become a professional golfer. At the same time Tiger Woods was at his peak, he became a role model for me. I basically dedicated my life to try and achieve my dream of being a professional golfer. Essentially, after that initial introduction to golf, that's what I decided I wanted to do. Everything I did was for golf. I remember distinctly when I went to high school, it was mandatory to play a summer sport and a winter sport, and golf wasn't recognized as either. It wasn't even considered a school sport.
Wow.
But I still found a way to just do that. And then when I did well in an international schools competition, they ended up giving me honors for golf and recognized that, and they let me do my thing. As I got older, progressed through the amateur ranks, turned professional, played in Asia, Middle East, Europe.
That experience of your first real professional match, were you nervous or were you like, I got this, I'm excited?
From a young age, I started playing competitive golf and tournament golf. My earliest experience of big competition was the SA Boys Under 16 national event, of which I was petrified. I learned a lot, and then I qualified to play on the MENA Tour, which is Middle East North Africa. That was my first tournaments overseas. For a good few years, I played as a touring pro, where I would travel a lot, come home for a few weeks, and then be off again for 4 or 5 weeks, different country each week, different tournaments, and then come back again. And I did that for a few years. That was one chapter of my life.
That competitive nature in you, was it a competitiveness within yourself, or was it just something that you loved?
Bit of both. I've always been a sportsman, because before golf I used to play cricket quite seriously. So it was just that competitiveness from being a sportsman. Once golf became my sole focus, that's all that I aimed for and worked towards. I had a Pilates instructor, I had a physical coach, golf coach, sports psychologist. It became quite serious. When I look back on it, I didn't achieve what I wanted to achieve with golf, but I was very comfortable at the level I was at.
What did you want to achieve?
Obviously, to become the best in the world. I don't have any regret when I look back at what I did achieve, the countries I managed to visit, the places I played, etc. Yeah.
It sounds like when you look back, you're like, oh my gosh, I'm glad that I put in the work. I followed what I wanted to do and I did it.
Yeah.
That's the most daunting part to a lot of people. Everyone has an idea of something that they want to do, and it's a lot easier to find an excuse as to why not to do it. Is there any advice you can give to someone who has that urge of, I want to do this, but I don't know how to get myself to let go of everything and fully commit to what I want to do?
The easiest way to approach something that is daunting like that, in all of our lives, experiences where it seems like insurmountable or like you're never going to get there.
Yeah.
But I would say the only way to eat an elephant is a little bit by a little bit. As long as you remain focused on what you're trying to achieve, just go through the steps. There's no way to rush things that are worth it.
It's the process
Yeah,
versus the end goal.
exactly. It's often easy to get frustrated because it's not happening now, especially in this world where everything is instant, but always keep focused on why you're doing it in the first place and work towards it. Look at how am I going to get there and go through the steps. Don't try and go around things.
That's something
makes
I
sense.
really struggle with myself. I want to see the results. Even doing less But with more intention, you end up finding better results.
When I decided I wanted to do something, I put everything into it. Follow your dreams, as fairy as it sounds, but if you really want to do something, there's nothing that can stop you from achieving that, as long as you remain focused and dedicated to what you're trying to achieve and put everything into it. That's pretty much how I've lived. I was touring the world playing golf. I was also, well, still technically am a DJ. We had our own nightclub, myself and a few other associates. I would DJ while I was back in Joburg, and then I'd go off and play more tournaments and come back and DJ. So it was always like two different lives. I would wear a different hat for each. You'd have your music DJ friends, and then you'd have your golf friends. They come from different worlds. So those were the two main focuses of my life. DJing was never going to be my job. I always wanted it to be more of a hobby for the passion of what I was trying to share, the music and the journey around that. I did that for a few years and then became a guide in the Kruger Park. Whilst I was going through my career of golf and the DJing, I met a guy at my golf course, because I was obviously a member at a specific golf club, and I would be there every day practicing when I was in South Africa. I met this guy who was a social golfer. He was very passionate about golf. He had a lot of free time, so he was at the golf course almost every day.
Yeah.
I met him on the driving range. We became friends. He wanted to spend time with me to play golf. I had a companion to hit balls with and play rounds with instead of being by myself. After getting to know him, it turns out that he used to be a guide when he was younger. That really interested me because I had never spent much time in the bush before that on safari. I started to ask him more questions about the bush. What is it like? Obviously the big five, lions, etc. We ended up doing a trip. He had the idea of let's go to the Kruger, and then I would arrange for us to play Leopard Creek, which is the best course in South Africa. So he would get his golf fix with me and I would get the bush with him, which benefited both of us. I'll never forget. We went to do that. We spent time in the bush. I loved the bush element and learning from him. What bird is this? How to use this camera? How to get the perfect angle? It was my introduction to safari. And then we went and played Leopard Creek, which is the best course in South Africa. After that trip ended, I just remember having the biggest smile because I had the best time in the bush. It became a drug in the sense I just wanted to get back to the bush.
What was that first experience like?
It was so foreign, having traveled the world, to be in a space that was that wild. It was something that I'd never experienced. Yeah, just the wilderness, the remoteness of it. After that trip, we did another one and we did another one. And then we started to actually do these little unofficial tours where word of mouth, we would take people up to the bush, we'd play golf with them, we'd take them for game drives, we'd cook dinner for them in the bush, cook breakfast, so stay in the Kruger National Park, go play golf, do game drives.
So not at a lodge,
Not
like
a lodge,
your own thing.
Unofficially, we didn't have a company or anything.
Yeah.
It was friends or spread the word, and we would do these little tours, so we became partners in a way. As time progressed, went our different ways. I kept going to the bush because it became my love and my passion. I got to the point that whenever I was in the country in between golf trips, I would go to the Kruger just by myself. 5-6 nights. You do your own game drives, self-catering little hut that I would stay in. That became my release from all the stress of traveling, of golf, because by this point golf was more of a job. I was slowly starting to lose that passion for it. I still loved golf, but it got to the point where the only place I wanted to be was in the bush.
Do you think that you lost the passion for golf, or that your passion for the bush was stronger?
That's such a good question, because it was actually, as my passion was growing for the bush, my love for golf started to diminish a little bit. It definitely went hand in hand.
Yeah.
By that point, my whole life, all I did was push towards being a professional golfer. That's all I had ever eat, sleep, dreamt about.
Yeah.
Naturally, now that it's a job, it's not as fun. The precursor was going to the bush. Yeah. As my passion grew there, my love for golf diminished a little bit. And I found myself, when I was playing golf tournaments overseas, the only place I wanted to be was in the Kruger.
How did you transition?
Whilst I was playing golf and visiting the bush in between my trips, and then DJing on the side as well, 3 different hats, I felt somewhere inside that being in the bush or in the Kruger is ultimately where I wanted to be, because I felt the happiest there, most at peace. But I didn't think that my life would go the direction it went. I was going through this pattern of being in the bush, being overseas for golf, coming home, being in the bush again. I actually got a message on Facebook. I received this message on Facebook from, to be quite honest, somebody that I didn't recognize at first. He said, "Hey, I work at a lodge in the Kruger. I see you always in the Kruger. You should come visit. It's been a long time. And I was like, cool, I would love to go there because it was a lodge that I'd always dreamt of visiting, but I didn't quite connect where I knew this guy from. It was a little bit daunting at first. And I was like, yes, one day I'll come, put it to the side because I was a bit anxious about going to this foreign place, don't know him. And he persisted. A year went by and he kept on messaging me, come and visit when you're in the Kruger. Eventually I just said, I'm going to do it. I asked a colleague of mine or a fellow professional golfer who I know loves the bush, hey, do you want to come with to the Kruger? I put this trip together where we were going to visit this friend of mine in a lodge for 2 nights and stay in the staff accommodation and see who he is and see what that lodge is like. I went up there and almost instantly I recognized where I knew this guy from. He was actually a fan of me with my DJing time. So he used to come and watch me play. We became friends in the nightclub world.
Yeah. I knew him after hours.
Yeah, exactly. I immediately recognized who he was and we hit it off. That first night in the bush was fantastic. Then I started to come back and visit him all the time to the point that I was there once a month in between my travels abroad. During that time visiting him and the lodge, I became friends with the guides there, the staff. It became like family in a way. And all of the guides there could see my passion for the bush and the wild, and they all pushed me to do a guiding course. I toyed with this idea for a long time. At first I was like, I want to do that. But it was also quite daunting because I wasn't early 20s anymore. I had my whole life, everything I'd worked towards. I was stable with what I was doing. But at the same time, I knew inside that this is what I would really want to do. About a year later, I'll never forget the moment where I made the decision to actually do it. I was at this lodge and I went to one of the other staff camps and I had dinner with the head chef and the head guide. I was staying at the other staff camp. There was a shuttle that went in between. You can't drive yourself there because it's in the Kruger National Park. I had to take this last shuttle at about 11 o'clock at night and they came and fetched me from the chef's house. On the shuttle, it was just me and the kitchen staff. I was the only white person there, a lot of the locals in the vehicle, driving back in the middle of the Kruger, middle of the night, middle of nowhere. And I'll never forget sitting there all shy, and they were playing this local music, local Shangaan music, and they were all singing, all dancing in their seats. And I remember sitting there thinking, this is life, and this is what I want to do. It was from that moment that I got off that shuttle, and I'm like, I'm doing it. The very next day, I made plans, sold a whole lot of stuff to pay for the course, changed my life, signed up for the next year, January, and that was a year-long course that I did. That was the tipping point. I actually still have that song that was playing. I found it, managed to find it, and I still have it. Whenever I need a reminder as to why I'm doing this, I listen to that.
Listen to the song. So that song invoked this sense of what it feels to truly live.
That's exactly right. That's why I decided to do it, because this is living life. It really appealed to me to go back away from the city, away from the hustle and bustle, the stress, politics. You're literally living life in a space that you love.
You have one life to live.
Exactly,
if you're not doing what brings you that joy.
Yeah, that's also something that I've always lived by, in the sense of I've never wanted to do something that I don't enjoy. I've always said to myself, the minute what I do is not fun anymore, then change, because you only have one life.
Yeah.
Why would you want to spend most of your time doing something that you hate? That's essentially why it's been such an interesting ride.
That mindset alone is why you've been able to accomplish what you have and go down these walks of life that not everyone does. You're not scared about what the outcome is. You're living from a place of authenticity, saying, I want to do what I care about, what I'm passionate about, how I want to spend my day. And when it comes from our inner selves wanting that, versus doing it for external reasons, because we grew up believing that we should be this certain way, because society makes us feel this way.
That's how I've always lived life. You got to do what you love.
Yeah, yeah.
Because you're only here for so long.
Living in the bush, you are surrounded by so many animals, especially in Kruger, you have the big five. What is the state that you experience when you're there? What does that bring out of you?
One of the facets of being a guide that attracted me the most when I was doing that course was the walking aspect. Being a walking guide, spending a lot of time on foot in the bush, overnight trails in the bush. That's what really attracted me the most. Brendan and Wayne from Low Fault Trails took me on my first ever backpack trail when I was still training. The wisdom and the livingness of them and how they viewed things, and philosophical at times, the speak, that drew me towards the walking guide aspect. To answer your question, what do I feel when I'm in the bush? It's almost like a state of peace and calm. When I'm on foot in the bush and we're walking with guests, or just me by myself, or with some apprentices that we're mentoring, you don't talk while you walk. And it's a lot of quiet, a lot of being aware. Awareness is the biggest thing. To walk in the bush, you have to be situationally aware, because obviously danger could be anywhere. Being that present and in the moment is what draws me to it the most. A sense of calm and a sense of balance between yourself and your surroundings.
You ever experience that feeling of calmness and balance while you were playing golf?
Yes. If I look back to moments that I've played particularly well, you would speak of it as being in the zone. While you're playing, you don't have any thought. You don't know how you hit that shot. You don't know what you did to hit that shot, but you just saw where you're trying to hit it, envisioned it, and did it. Taking that to the bush, when you're walking in the bush or spending time in the bush, especially on a walking trail, because it's the most immersive experience you can have, you also get into that zone where you'll hear a branch break 30 meters away in the bush or 50 meters away. You'll hear the call of the oxpeckers that could indicate that there's a dangerous animal around. You'll hear a squirrel alarm calling because it's seen something. It's a similar sort of thing of being in the zone and being present. That's the easiest way to describe it. Being in the moment, not detached.
The root of everything is being present. The power of when we're in that state and what we're able to accomplish. I have to sit and close my eyes and meditate is how we think of a meditative state. But there's so many other ways to get into that same meditative state. For you, it sounds like it's being able to be in a place where there's nothing around and you're with nature.
Wild spaces, yeah. That's what drew me to doing this. What I live for the most is spending a day walking in the bush, finding somewhere to camp, making a little fire, and just being in that moment. It's very primitive. That's what draws me towards it.
When was a moment of feeling alive? Describe that feeling. What was the setting?
There's so many. I remember quite distinctly the first ever backpack trail I did. Essentially, we would go out into the bush, 2 guides, up to 6 guests, no tents. You carry everything in your backpack, sleeping bag, food, whatever you need. We'd dig for water out of the riverbed to fill up our water bottles. And because we don't have tents, everybody would have to do a shift of night watch. The guides, the guests, everybody would get their 1-hour slot and you would hand over to the next guy. I'll never forget the first ever trail I did, which was more like a mentorship trail with Low Fault Trails. That first night, when it was my turn to do night watch, I think I was 3 to 4 in the morning and I was dreading this. I was like, why am I doing this? I'm not going to get any sleep. I've got to walk the whole day tomorrow. I've got to carry this backpack. I literally lay there trying to sleep and the time passed. I couldn't sleep. I just dozed off. It must have been half an hour later, the fellow guests waking me up because it's my shift. I went and sat there and I was feeling sorry for myself. Everybody else went to bed. And it's just you sitting there with the fire in the middle of nowhere, in the dark, stars above you, no cell phone signal, no cell phones at all. And you just have to be there. I remember hearing a lion roar in the distance. That was the moment I was like, this is the best part of being on trail.
Wow.
To this day, the reason I do most of the trails is for the night watch. It's like sitting there in the dark by yourself, knowing that you're responsible for the rest of the group, being present and just listening to what's going on around you.
Do you think being in a setting where you're constantly having to be aware of what's around you connects you with more of your primal instincts?
Yes, definitely. The most immersive experience you can have is being out there sleeping on the ground with your herd of guests, of people, looking out for each other. It's about being one with nature, I think is what draws me to it. It's not really the dangers of it that makes it exciting. I feel safer walking through the bush than I do driving a vehicle on a motorway. I feel most at peace there. If I come to the city, I feel very anxious.
It's that oneness that you have with the world that you feel when you're there.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what the practice is, it's being able to find how you can connect with it.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
When you are taking guests out, you must have to gauge how to make them feel comfortable.
Yeah, my favorite part about what I do is when I get guests that is their first time to the bush. What I love the most about what I do and guiding guests, whether it be first time guests, whether it be repeat guests, is having those guests in an area that they are unfamiliar with, a life that they are unfamiliar with, being out in the wilderness, and showing them how I see the bush and giving them an experience and a part of what I love the most. Taking these very successful people where usually you wouldn't even have a chance of getting them on the phone or speaking to them, and now they have complete trust in you and they just are in the palm of your hand. I love teaching people about the bush, showing them things they wouldn't necessarily normally see, you getting people to experience Africa. But I always question to myself, where do their feet actually touch African soil? So the biggest challenge I always put forward to myself is to try and create an experience. How can I make this experience unique and memorable? Not just game drive, lunch, game drive. To answer your question, I would say just being able to showcase what I love the most to guests that wouldn't necessarily normally experience that. No two guests are the same. It's about taking that information that you've learned about your guests and creating a unique experience for them. If there are guests that are really interested in birds, you go and push that narrative hard.
You recently got your bird certification. Forgive me, I don't know the name of the certification. You can recall 250 different bird sounds?
Yeah, part of the qualification that I've been busy with is to become a birding specialist or SKS birds. Part of what that entails is you have to do various slide and sound tests. The slide would be a picture of the bird that you would need to identify, but the other part of the test is just calls. You would hear a call of a bird and you would have to identify what it is. The slide and sound test, a practical assessment with an assessor, and obviously an exam, which is more theory-based.
Different sounds, they're different frequencies. But how did you get to a point of being able to familiarize yourself with figuring out what the difference between the sound is?
It's just time in the bush. It's almost akin to learning a new language. A lot of practice, a lot of hard work, but you have to have a passion for it. Leading up to these slide and sound tests, my fiance would test me all the time, and we had a rigorous routine that we would go through. It's just time and a passion, really, like anything.
Yeah.
If you're passionate about something and you're willing to put in the time, you'll achieve it.
Where you work is the most profound safari in South Africa. How did you get to the point of being able to work at the lodge that you're at now?
I did the 6-month course, then I got placed at a small lodge. Spent a year at that small lodge, then got contacted by another lodge in the same reserve. Spent 2 years there, and then Royal Malewane actually approached me.
Wow.
Working on the same reserve. They could see the passion I had, how I treated guests, the experiences I gave guests, and they approached me to come and join them. At that point, I didn't even meet their qualifications that they would normally hire people on. I was actually below that, but they took a chance on me and recognized my passion or potential. Now I'm just as qualified as anybody on the team, and it's my family. When I started there, I was paired with one of the most senior trackers at the time. He had been with Royal Malewane for 21 years, Shadrach. We worked together for a few months. We hired a new tracker. He didn't know the Thorny Bush Nature Reserve at all. I ended up being paired with him because I knew the reserve. Since then, we've been together. This is now 3 years down the line. I'd say that's the closest relationship that you have in the bushes with you and your tracker, because you spend more time together than you do with anybody else. I'm very lucky to have Jeffrey as my tracker. We're a great team.
When you're in nature and you're surrounded by all of the animals, what is that person-to-person relationship like?
It's the same as any relationship. It takes time.
What is the best advice you can give to somebody who has this absurd idea of how they want to live their life, but aren't sure how to make the move to get there?
You have a goal in mind, what you want to achieve, and be relentless in trying to achieve it, but absorb as much information as you can from people who have done or gone down similar paths. You will never stop learning. That's the most important thing in any profession or any job. Always be humble, but yet be ruthless in trying to achieve what you're trying to achieve. Always seek advice.
And that's how we change the world.